See it?
Hey, everyone.
Hello, Brooke. How are you?
Happy December.
Happy December. Yes.
Hey, Debbie.
How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, I know.
Doing well.
Indeed. I have my up to no good glass of water to get me through.
Very cute.
I love those stocking stuffers. Francine, how you doing? Francine?
Excuse me?
Francine?
Francine, I think you're on mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. There
Yes.
you go. How you doing?
Okay.
Almost.
Can you hear me now?
There
Yes.
we go. Hey, Hen.
Okay, my Wi-Fi is a little bad, so sorry.
Don't worry. Marie, congrats on the college news, too. I meant to tell you when we were
Thank
emailing
you.
last time. That's wonderful.
Yes, thank you. I mean, you know what? I'm happy that it's over, but COVID changed a lot of things. He had some
Mhm.
nice offers to go away, and he didn't really want to go too far under COVID because he's a little bit of a germaphobe and OCD, and he didn't want to be like far or whatever. So it was like, and you get these offers and like they want an answer like right away. And like we were looking at like 4 different offers, which were all were his top choices. And he was like, I don't know what I want to do, because if COVID goes away, then maybe I do want to be farther away. But thank God his coach is wonderful, and he was like, when things change, if you want to change, I'm not going anywhere. He's like, you call me and we can change things.
That's great news. Cheers.
Thank you.
Katie, how you doing? Nice
Thanks.
background.
That's for our official presentations to the City Planning Commission.
Nice.
We have a standardized background, but I don't think it's necessary right now. We're waiting for actually 3 or 4 more.
Yeah, a few more, I think,
From
from your
BCD.
end. And
Yeah.
We have a few more on our end as well.
Great. And will I be able to share my screen? It looks like I can. That's probably the easiest. I know I sent the presentation, but.
Yeah, I'll make you the presenter.
Okay, great.
And you can take it from there.
Yeah, thanks.
And thank you, too, for the PDF. I'll work on the minutes tomorrow, Marie, and have them emailed out by noon.
Thank you, Brooke.
You bet.
So let's see, who are we missing on our end? We are missing
Looks like
a representative from CB1 and Councilwoman Rose, right?
And Councilman Borelli as well.
Borelli, yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
Great view. Look at you.
Thanks.
You should
How
say
are you doing?
Charlotte, but I don't know how to turn my picture on.
Uh-oh.
There's a little bar at the bottom of your screen. There should be a
Right.
camera that has a little red line through it. If you click on that camera.
Yeah, I did all of that and nothing happens.
Move your mouse, Jerry.
Excuse me?
Move the mouse.
My mouse is moving.
No, your mouse.
Oh,
Like,
my mouth is moving.
is there another word for it? Mouse. MOUSE.
Move my mouse. Okay.
Yes.
And then it'll come up.
Well, it's not. I'll try. I'll do my best. I can hear you, and I will. You're just missing the gorgeous.
Well, the important thing, what snappy socks are you wearing today?
Oh, that's nice and nice shirt. Put a sport jacket on. It's a big day out for me. And no one can see me.
That's the best
And
part
you
of remote
CB1.
working. No one knows what we're wearing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It can be a blessing, let me tell you.
Okay, we did have CB join us. I see Joe.
Awesome.
Why
Hi,
am
Joe.
I echoing?
Does anybody see me now?
Not yet.
Oh, well.
Chris, you should be on Room Rater with that. Ooh, wow. With that groovy background, you should be on Room Rater.
Okay, we have Nick and Joe. Jerry, can you shut one of your things off? Because you have two, and that might be the echo.
I
You
will.
actually have three open.
I was trying to do it on my phone.
Okay.
Or if you mute one of them at least, yeah.
They mute,
Yes.
let's try that. Better?
Hey,
Yes.
do you see me now?
Yes.
Again.
See, I got a sport jacket on, comb my hair.
Great.
Very snazzy.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Okay, is everybody here from city planning?
Yep, I think we're all here.
All right, we're gonna give council, the two council members a few minutes, and then we'll get started. And they could just join late, because we do have a quorum. We have 5 people, so.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Nick is on also.
Yes, I see him. All right, I'm gonna text the council members.
Deborah, we see your front and back in the mirror.
I send this to Rob, just trying to get in. Copy. Roberts. Rob Colegio is trying to get on.
Okay, we'll wait for him.
Okay.
And I texted the missing people, so we'll give them a minute to see if they text back. Okay, he's here. I see him.
I'm here.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
Took me long enough, but I figured it out.
Welcome
Hi.
to the team.
Thank you.
Okay, you know what? I think we're gonna get started, and the other two, if they should show up, will just join in then, because it's 5 minutes after the meeting was supposed to get started, and I texted both of them, and I haven't heard back from them yet, so I think we should just get started.
Like a plan.
Okay, so I'm under Christopher LaFrancesca, my son. I don't know, he was using my laptop while his MacBook was broken, so I guess he changed my settings, so.
Hey, Chris,
So
how you doing?
So that's me.
There's two of us now.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I am going to call the meeting to order. If we could all just say the pledge. I don't have a flag in my house. Maybe next time I'll go stand outside the door so we could use it, but if we could just,
I actually
say the
do,
pledge.
so 1 second. I have
I have a small one we use. for
Okay, yes, if
the
we could get a
meeting.
small one.
All right, 1 sec.
I'm here, so if you want to do it.
Excellent.
I have it if you want.
Okay, can you
Do you see
put
it?
it up? Yes, I can.
There you go,
Okay,
Francine. Thank you.
all right. If you can all join me, I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
to
the flag
the flag
of the United
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it
which
stands,
stands
one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
Indivisible,
with liberty
liberty,
and
and
justice.
and justice for all.
Okay, so moving right along, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Attendance, we have 5 members right now. We are missing Councilwoman Rose's representative and Councilmember Borelli's representative. So no further delay. We're going to go right into the presentation, and then we'll take care of the other housekeeping issues after they're done with their presentation, so they could go and do, I'm sure they're busy. So we have city planning here today, and they're going to give us a presentation regarding the zoning for the coastal flood resiliency. So city
Great.
planning, take it away.
Katie, I just made you the host, so you can share your screen.
Excellent. Thank you. Let me get this.
You bet.
Right. Showing here. Share. There we go. We see the cover for zoning for coastal flood resiliency, right?
Great.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me and my team here. My name is Katie Ferrara Iannito. I am a team leader and a resiliency planner with DCP's Staten Island office. I'm joined today by DCP Staten Island office director, Chris Hadwin, Alina Farishta, our deputy director, and Manuela Pawadaico, who's a zoning specialist and the project manager for this proposal at DCP, as well as James Harris from our intergovernmental affairs office. And what we're going to go over this afternoon is zoning for coastal flood resiliency, which is a citywide proposal to assist homes and businesses in our floodplain to better prepare their buildings for flood risk over time. I'll speak about this at a high level for the next 15 to 20 minutes, and then we can take any questions. So when we're analyzing what's the city's coastal flood risk, we tend to focus on the area that FEMA designates as the high risk flood zones. That's the area that has a 1% annual chance of being flooded. And in Staten Island, there's about 13,000 buildings in this 1% annual chance floodplain area. However, during Sandy, of course, close to half of the area that's designated not as high risk, but as moderate risk, or the 0.2% annual chance floodplain, was inundated. About half that area was inundated, and that moderate risk zone contains an additional about 6,000 buildings in Staten Island. And the floodplain is also projected to continue to expand. So essentially by the 2050s, what is today's moderate risk flood zone will likely be at high risk for flooding. So we're trying to plan for that changing risk over time and increasing risk. And to address the wide range of challenges that come with the goals of flood risk adaptation, the city knows that we need to pursue a strategy that involves what we call multiple lines of defense. So our work includes things like coastal defense, protection of our inland infrastructure like drainage and transit, and also work to advance emergency preparedness, things like evacuation plans. Zoning for coastal flood resiliency that we're talking about today is a tool that is specifically meant to help advance the resiliency of the design of our city's building stock. But it does fit within this larger framework. So the proposal is building on 2 zoning amendments that were put in place relatively shortly after Hurricane Sandy, so one in 2013 and one in 2015. And those flexibilities that were granted in the zoning provisions were passed as temporary emergency measures, and they're beginning to actually expire. DCP conducted several years of research and outreach, which uncovered many issues that communities are still facing. And the proposal now is to make many of those temporary provisions that were added after Sandy permanent, and also to expand them so that communities have even greater flexibilities and options for adaptation and preparedness. And ultimately, this proposal, we're calling ZCFR, Zoning for Coastal Flood Resiliency, is intended to help those that are living and working in the floodplain to do several things, specifically reduce damage that they're at risk for from future coastal storms, to be resilient in the long term by accounting for not just today's flood risks, but future flood risks, and to potentially help save on their flood insurance costs. Provisions are also included in ZCFR to assist with disaster recovery from unknown events in the future, as well as specific provisions related to recovering from the present situation with COVID-19. We'll get to that in a little bit. So the current proposal has 4 broad goals to support resiliency as well as future recovery. We'll go through each of them in the zoning provisions that are proposed under each of these, but essentially it's first to expand applicability throughout the current and future floodplain, to support resilient design for all types of buildings, to allow for gradual resiliency upgrades over time, and lastly, to facilitate rules that'll help the city respond more easily to future disasters. So starting with goal number 1, it would expand the applicability of this zoning text to more lots across New York City. It's important to note that these regulations that we're discussing today are all optional. They would allow buildings to meet or even exceed flood resistant construction elevation requirements that are set by FEMA and also set in Appendix G of the building code. But what we're discussing today are, through zoning, additional flexibilities to help that be achieved. And to explain what we mean by expanding applicability, ZCFR would allow any lot that's within either the 1% chance or that 0.2% annual chance floodplain to have access to the proposed options for resilient building design. So this would allow people living in that moderate risk zone today to proactively undertake resiliency improvements, even if they're not required to by the building code. And I do have here, more specific in Staten Island, what we're talking about is the proposal would expand the design provisions into the green area. So that's the moderate risk flood zone. The blue area is where many options are already allowed under the temporary post-Sandy regulations. So in goal number 2, the section illustrates options that would be made available to help buildings fully comply with resilient design standards that are, again, set in Appendix G of the building code. So starting with building envelope, having more flexibility in the bulk regulations, so things like height, yards, floor area requirements that are set in zoning. So adding more flexibility to those would, in many cases, allow building owners to do things like physically elevate habitable space above the expected flood elevations. So with this set of rules, buildings could be made more resilient without putting homeowners in the really tricky situation of potentially having to choose between keeping all their floor area or making their homes resilient. So next are ground floor provisions. So through things like floor area exemptions, the proposed rules would encourage internal access and active uses to be kept at the sidewalk level as much as possible so that floodplain communities could continue to be vibrant and accessible, particularly in our commercial corridors that are within the floodplain. And streetscape regulations, additionally, there'd be a set of streetscape requirements to improve the ground floor design of resilient buildings. So we don't want that blank wall condition because of how these buildings need to be constructed. We want to require things like planters, wall treatments, additional windows or entrances where applicable, again, to keep those street fronts active, especially in our commercial corridors. And there are also proposed rules that would allow buildings that don't currently conform with use regulations, so homes and manufacturing districts, for example, or ones that don't comply with our bulk regulations. So, for example, cottage-style buildings on small lots that don't provide required yards because they were built, in most cases, before zoning required those yards. There are a set of provisions that would allow these kinds of properties to be retrofitted for resilience without bumping into their kind of overlying zoning constraints. And just to briefly illustrate one of those particularly relevant provisions for non-compliant buildings, the building that's illustrated on the left is essentially what would result when someone would try to construct a home that is flood compliant, so elevated, on a very small lot. And it's clearly out of context from its kind of cottage style neighbors. And also it generates a really inefficient interior layout. So what we're proposing, illustrated on the right, is to make the cottage envelope available for small lots across the city so that cottage style homes can be rebuilt and elevated above the flood level, but still maintain a contextual design. And this cottage envelope was previously allowed through the temporary text in places including South Beach, Midland Beach, New Dorp, Oakwood Beach, Great Kills, and Tottenville. And last, of course, with such a diverse stock of buildings and lot configurations across the city's floodplain, DCP recognizes that, of course, not all buildings would actually be facilitated by our as-of-right rules. So the proposal does include to continue to offer discretionary pathways in the form of BSA special permits to ensure that in unique situations, buildings are permitted to meet the Appendix G flood resiliency standards for design. Now moving on to our third goal, this set of provisions are what we call our partial resiliency strategies. So they help buildings undertake incremental steps toward resiliency without requiring the entire structure or site to fully meet Appendix G of the building code. So to take kind of one step at a time, investing in resiliency. And so we've learned since Sandy that raising mechanical equipment, getting it out of the way of flooding, is often the first step that property owners make to make their building more resilient and also make post-storm recovery easiest. So the proposal would enable more options for the placement of equipment above the flood level, either on top of roofs, common strategy for larger buildings, or in a separate structure, which is more common for, say, larger sites. I will say the situation illustrated here, of course, wouldn't be widely applicable in Staten Island. On-site mechanical buildings are limited to sites that are over 1.5 acres and already have 3 or more multifamily buildings. This is, of course, a citywide text provision, but there are flexibilities that would apply to more typical lots. And a big portion of the floodplain next contains businesses, so not just homes, but businesses, and often they're part of the city's industrial economy. So many of those kinds of operations can't really be completely elevated or dry floodproof just because of their operational requirements and because they're often renting. So the proposal would offer provisions to allow the relocation of priority equipment and other items through measures like what's shown here, and elevated mezzanine in an industrial space. So these kinds of spaces can offer businesses some support either immediately after a storm event to kind of go back into operation, and most importantly, probably help minimize business disruption, say if they're putting their records or certain equipment like computers out of harm's way. So the proposal would also enable different types of flood protection measures to be implemented. This would include allowances for what's shown here. One thing shown here is flood panels and also landscape berms. They would be considered permitted obstructions in open areas, so to facilitate them on private property. Now, in terms of waterfront public access, we look at our waterfront sites, and in many of these sites, zoning will require, upon redevelopment, public access and waterfront public access area to specific set of design standards. But we have heard that the zoning in place now doesn't allow often private properties required waterfront yards or visual corridors to be raised high enough to account for future flood risk. So they have to design these spaces that are at risk of regular flooding in the near future. We have heard from, we've heard from developers that basically they can't be resilient in the long term. So the proposal would offer more flexibility for the grading of these sites and would facilitate resiliency measures in addition, such as soft shorelines and access to the water. I am getting a note here, sorry for my disruption, that the meeting is going to end in 10 minutes. Does somebody need to log into a paid account to avoid that?
That would be me.
I just have about 2 minutes left of content, but I know we want discussion.
Yeah, sorry, Katie, that would be me. I'll need to choose a plan.
Do you want me to continue just through the last?
Yes, please finish what you
Okay,
need.
yeah, I'll go as quickly as I can. So the final goal is proposed in many cases to apply essentially citywide through additional flexibilities that would apply beyond the floodplain. So first, Sandy showed us, of course, that a storm's effects can go beyond the floodplain, particularly when we're thinking about our energy grid. Power outages are not limited to just the floodplain. So the proposal would allow power systems like generators to be considered permitted obstructions and allowed in open spaces across zoning districts, including inland. In addition, there's a provision to ensure that in all areas of the city, we can better facilitate ADA access. So to classify things like ramps and lifts as permitted obstructions in open areas. Another important issue is how disasters, especially those that require evacuation of residents, impact our particularly vulnerable populations. And nursing homes have been noted as having populations that require continual medical care, and their dependency can be strained whether they're asked to evacuate or to shelter in place. So the proposal would prohibit the development of new nursing homes, essentially within the high-risk flood zone and some additional areas across the city that have been deemed to be very difficult to evacuate because of limited in and out access. This map shows that there are no facilities in Staten Island, I believe, that are currently licensed as nursing homes and within the 1% flood zone. But an additional element of this provision is that existing facilities could enlarge to a certain extent, up to 15,000 square feet, for modest improvements over time, including to make those buildings resilient. Lastly, as we went through with Sandy, we know there can be a lengthy process to do things like update zoning regulations to facilitate the necessary fast-paced disaster response. So this proposal does include rules that essentially could be made available to facilitate future recovery from disasters, including flooding, but also other risks. One element of this would be engaging the certain relief rules related to the COVID-19 pandemic, such as allowing more time for businesses that have been disrupted if they are at risk of hitting a time limit for discontinuance of business, essentially extending the time that they could come back into operation. And just lastly here, this is referred out currently to all community boards, borough presidents, and borough boards. Will be referred out to the city council for review in addition. Community boards are currently being asked to submit their recommendations. The City Planning Commission and a Borough Board recommendation is requested as well. So I will say thank you, and I'm happy to take questions. I know we probably want to resolve making sure we're not going to time out.
Yeah, sorry, I don't remember my password, so trying to get that reset so I can get a plan. So, any questions?
Can we get a copy of this?
I'll be emailing it out with the minutes tomorrow, Jerry.
Thank you, Brooke, you're on top.
We'll
of
be
things.
hearing this at land use tonight.
Should have mentioned that. CB1.
Yeah, so Joe Halferty will be giving that presentation tonight. I think
Right,
that's
okay.
right, Katie, right? Yeah.
Yes, I'll be there with Joe.
I think CB2, we're in a few weeks, you're coming to visit us as well, right, Deb?
Yep, I think December 15th.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you
And
then.
we're scheduled at CB3 has already happened, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for city planning? Okay, thank you, guys.
Well, thank you.
Katie,
Thank
if
you
you'll
all.
send those back to me, please.
And there's a lot of detail in here, so certainly as you're reviewing
Thank
it and thinking it through, don't hesitate to reach out with questions, and we're happy to get back to you and fill in any gaps.
I would also recommend, in addition to the slides that I shared, we can link you to our website, which includes a more detailed set of slides, our project description, and also an annotated version of the zoning itself, the proposed zoning text itself, so you can take a look through that. I find it very helpful.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks again. All right, take care. I'm going to jump off.
Bye, Chris.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. All right, so just so we could quickly run through this so Brooke doesn't have to go crazy doing anything else. Old business. Does anybody have any old business to bring up? Okay, new business, just one quickie thing. Our next meeting, we will be having the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment do a short presentation. They're going to discuss the film and television permitting process under COVID, so that we have a better grasp of it when we get these phone calls, probably from constituents asking, well, there's a film crew here. Are they allowed to be here if they're not socially distancing or anything? So we have a grasp and we can be informative to our constituents.
Does this meet January?
Yes, that will
Great.
be January. Does any of the board members have any new business to bring up?
This is Robert. I just asked Deb to get the info for the invites, because I didn't really receive the Zoom meeting. I had a WebEx address and they couldn't get on. So.
Oh, that's on me, Bob. I'm sorry to send out a second email with that. Zoom was just a bit easier to record the meeting, which we do need to do for Borough Board regulations.
All right, doesn't matter. Debbie will get it for me one more. I just wanted to
Great.
log on. But thank you. Have a happy holiday, everybody.
You as well.
Yes, everybody have a happy, healthy holiday and a happy
Stay
new year.
safe and stay
Safe.
in and stay safe.
Everybody
Okay, and
everybody be safe.
Can I just entertain a motion to adjourn so we are following
Motion to
protocol?
adjourn.
Okay, Jerry first, Bob second. Okay, we are done.
Take care,
Thank
guys. Be
you.
careful.
Wonderful holiday, everybody. Bye.
Deb,
Thank
care.
you
Deb,
all.
I'll
Good
talk to
Good
you
job,
tomorrow, Deb.
ladies. Great
Thank
job
you.
putting this together.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Take care.
Brooke.
You bet. Talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
Brooke.
Thanks, Brooke.
Bye now.
Say hi to the lawyer.
I certainly will. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.